All right, we are so excited to have with us today a dynamic presenter, Kevin Hudson with Princeton University, who is going to share with you not just about Princeton, but the overall college admissions process for some of our competitive or selective institutions that students may find or may feel are out of reach. He's here to help you make that connection. He's been here in the Savannah area a couple of times, but we thought it would be important, especially with our mission and goal of MegaGenesis, to make sure that you are exposed to all opportunities, to make sure that you had and can take advantage of this information. So students, parents, even if you know ninth graders, eighth graders, we want everybody in this session because we want you to start now, start early, and get this information so that you can share and be prepared. So Mr. Hudson, I'm turning it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And students, parents, advisors, everybody, you are in for a treat. So please be attentive and please post your questions in the chat. Make sure you also sign in as well.
Thank you very much, Ms. McGuire. It's really a privilege and a pleasure to be here engaging the greater Savannah, Chatham community to talk about selective college admissions. As I talk, I encourage you all to take your time to write questions that you might have in the chat. I'm sure Ms. McGuire will lead me to it and make sure that I respond to the questions you have. I'm gonna use a lot of terminology and words and language, and maybe even thoughts about the process that you may not have heard before, you have questions about. Feel free to question me. You know, there are no, I might have worked in this business for some time, but my perspective may not be clear or right sometimes. So I wanna make sure I'm able to share with you resources. As was noted, I work at Princeton University. I'm in the office of the provost. I'm originally from East Orange, New Jersey. Have family in Alabama, but I'm a Northerner. Attended a private high school that I was a first-gen low-income student, but had an opportunity to go to that high school, Del Barton School. Wouldn't have necessarily thought about Princeton, I don't think, if not for that experience. Attended and graduated from Princeton and went on to the graduate school at the University of Pennsylvania some years later. So I've been working in this field for some time, just so you know who you're speaking with. So why college? I like to start with that because a lot of times we're like, oh, do you really have to go? So this is just some national data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and just outlines some of the value of attending college, right? Looking there at what the, a lot of times the more education you have, right, the higher your weekly earnings are, and that's important. What we don't talk about, right, is the unemployment rate difference for those based on their education and things like healthcare, ability to take paid time off from work, and other resources and quality of life that's afforded you based on your education. As we look at Georgia, right, there's a real discrepancy as well in education, and there's discrepancies in general across gender and race. But just seeing those differences there, you can look at those charts, and it's very clear. Women in general make less than men, but also across income. Those gaps are widened based on education level. We know those gaps also exist based on race. In Georgia, discrepancies in income level and annual earnings, but it is widened even more based on education. And so again, the importance of education. But not just education, but how you are taking advantage of opportunities to develop yourself, develop skills, to be able to take advantage of the marketplace and not be limited. And so as you think about college, right, if hopefully through that information, you're feeling like, yeah, I'm going to college, you're here on a Saturday, so, or whenever you might be watching this. So you are thinking about it and planning it. And it starts early, right? It starts in elementary and middle school and developing a love of learning and things of that nature. But as you are evaluating colleges, and you should start early, just going to visit colleges and doing searches, just so you can learn about them. You're gonna learn something new every year that you take a look at them and think about how it fits you. But some highlighted things you want to think about is just not, oh, do I feel right? That's important, right? Does it feel like a match with me? What's the diversity? That's important. But what's the quality of advising at the school? What type of academic support do they have available to students? All students, no matter their background, need academic support. No matter how strong they were academically in high school, need that to be successful. But you also want to look at things like graduation rate. They're looking at your GPA and your grades. You want to look at their outcomes. Do students graduate? How long does it take them to graduate? There's a website called collegeresults.org that I encourage you all to utilize as you're looking at schools to evaluate them. And I'll speak more to why that's important. What's the job outcomes of schools, the alumni success, how are students doing after they graduate? And what are the research and internship opportunities available at the school? Those are all things that you want to make sure you're aware of and have a clear idea about. And some resources that are available, I mentioned that College Results Online. There's Barron's Profiles of American Colleges that might be a resource for consideration. My Intuition, if you want to really get some sense of, for my family, not what the list price of a school is, but for my family, how much would it cost to attend the school? Because that's going to vary greatly. Just because your cousin paid one amount or it costs a certain amount doesn't mean that's going to be the situation for you. And so you need to find out for your family, for your situation, what that looks like. And again, with all these things, it doesn't mean you don't apply it. It's just so you have a sense of the landscape. And so part of the evaluation and why you care about graduation rates, right? Those schools that have higher, and why we're focused on selective and most competitive schools, right? The more selective a school is, they probably have higher graduation rates. There's a lot of reasons for that. Sometimes that reason is because of their financial resources. Sometimes it's the resources they have available in general at the school to help students graduate. Sometimes it's just the focus of the students that they admit. There could be a range of reasons, but you at least want to be aware of what the differences are of schools based on admission rate. It doesn't mean you don't apply to schools that have lower admission rates, because they could fit you in other ways, or you could be part of their honors program. But it means that you're aware of some of these differences and can make an informed decision as you develop your college list. What we find often, though, is that while high-income students apply to a range of schools, it says safety there, but foundation schools and match schools and reach schools, low to moderate income, and dare I say often Black and Latino and Native, traditionally underrepresented students apply primarily to non-selective and less selective schools. And again, that will make a difference in your outcomes long-term, potentially. This is really about giving you options. This is research from the Georgetown Institute for Workforce and Development, which has found that, oftentimes African-American students attend and Latino students attend primarily open access schools. Those schools that might be under-resourced 2- and 4-year colleges versus their white peers that are often going to some of the most selective schools, 468 most selective schools in the country, which is a broad range of schools. Again, it doesn't mean that those are the only schools, or that going to the 2- and 4-year less selective schools couldn't be a fit for you. But that pattern means that it's a pattern and possibly an uninformed pattern. And why does that make a difference? I want you to take some time and look at this chart. The light blue bar are the comprehensive cost, the cost of attending a university or college. The dark blue bar are the out-of-pocket expenses. And in this case, the out-of-pocket expenses for students at the 20th percentile of family income. So low to moderate income students, low income students. What's interesting there, if you take a look at the most competitive cost, I want you to take a look at the public 2-year. Yes, it is actually more affordable to attend those most competitive schools than possibly the public 2-year. So I want you all to think how often you've heard or considered, like, is it, I want my baby or students, you may have heard, I should really only look at public schools if I'm going to afford college. Like public school is really the only way that I'm going to make college affordable. Or I can't consider a 4-year school. I need to really start at a 2-year school and then transfer to a 4-year school in order for me to afford college and make it affordable for me. Or maybe you've heard, you know what? I can't go out of state. I have to stay, in this case, Georgia, in order for me to afford college. I can't consider schools out of state. Those most competitive schools are often private. The majority of their students often are from out of state, and they're 4-year universities. Yet they're often more affordable, particularly for low to moderate income students, than the public 2-year colleges. So I want you to give that some thought as you walk by tables and at college fairs, and you hear a list price of a school, or you see a school and you heard it costs this amount, or it's fancy, or whatever it may be, or hard to get into. I can't consider it. Think about, breathe a little bit, believe in yourself, and consider why you might want to consider it. To give yourself as many options as possible in your process to both affording and gaining admission to college. And so when the way that that's able to occur, Princeton, for example, I'm gonna use some license here since I don't work in the admissions office, but I do work at the university and I attended it. I like to use that as an example. This is an example of financial aid for admitted students, and these are selected income ranges for the most recent class that graduated, the class of 2020. And you can see there what the average grant was for a student and what it covered and for what family incomes. And as you can see, in the Princeton calculation, low to moderate income is that 0 to 65,000 range. But also families making 100 to 120 and even 250,000 and above received aid that covered a fair amount of their cost of attendance. So learning terms like financial aid, a lot of times students are familiar with scholarships, and some of the most competitive and selective schools don't use the scholarship language because they're giving it, the money is being provided to families based on need. And so it's grant-based aid versus a scholarship that's being provided based on, and scholarships are provided usually based on some skill or background or something specific about the student that fits the reason for that scholarship or the foundations of that scholarship, whatever the term may be. And so you want to use forms like the FAFSA. You want to get familiar. Note the number one word there is free. Oftentimes the FAFSA is so you can access state and federal aid, but some schools use it even for their institutional aid. And some competitive schools may require you, selective schools, private schools, and some public schools even, University of Virginia, for example, may require you to use the CSS profile, I'd be wrong about Virginia, but CSS profile or an institutional aid form. And that form will help you, help the institution to understand what your needs are, what expenses you have, even at a greater level than the FAFSA form will ask you to share so that they can understand what your needs are. They also might require you to complete something called a non-custodial parent form, either a waiver for it or the non-custodial. For those of you who might live with your parents, biological parents are not together, or adoptive parents, or you might be raised by a foster parent of some kind. And so you want to make sure you're talking to your counselor about being declared an independent in that process. These are all processes that are important. It's not as simple as I'm going to apply for scholarships. There are these formal documents that must be completed, and your parents, and for the parents who are out there, you need to be familiar with these forms early. There's a website called FinAid, FINAID.org, that gives you some information about understanding financial aid in general that might be worth reviewing, along with looking at the College Board for learning more about the CSS profile, or the federal government to learn more about FAFSA. I'm going to stop there now before I get into how students are evaluated, just to see if there's been any questions or anything, Ms. McGuire, that I should be aware of, or if I should continue.
You can go ahead and continue. I would like to remind everybody, post your questions in the chat. We can see them. We have been answering all throughout the day. So post your questions in the chat and we'll make sure that they get answered.
Thank you. So let me talk a little bit about how students are evaluated, and how colleges might evaluate a student. And this varies a lot. I said admission office at 15 to 30 minutes, and it may vary a fair amount. My point is, you have control over what you present to a school, and they're going to use the evaluation to get some sense of what they share with you. So, or to get some sense of who you are and how you might be a student at their college or university. And so, they're getting a sense of what your academic preparation is, how you might contribute to the school community and beyond, and your metacognitive skills. I know that's like, what's this metacognitive thing? So we'll talk about that. And some applications that you can start reviewing now. Families, it always amazes me that students often wait until the summer before their senior year or the fall of their senior year to actually look at what a college is going to ask me when I apply, right? Like, you have the opportunity right now, if you're in 9th grade, 8th grade, 7th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, right now in February of this year, you can review the common application, the coalition application for access, affordability, and success, as well as whatever if there's a school that might not be a member of either of those applications, looking at a local school and looking at what questions they ask you to answer, so you can see how your activities right now might inform that application when you apply. So become familiar with the Common App, with the Coalition app, and maybe some local schools that you are considering applying to, and start to track the activities you're involved in, the contributions you've made. The Common App and Coalition actually, and the Coalition definitely allows you to track that information. Your school may have a tool called Naviance or some other tool that allows you to track what activities you've been involved in, your academic engagement, etc. So I encourage you to utilize that as well. I also want you to do something else right now, no matter what grade you're in, but especially for those high school students out there, is to every year, right now, the conversation often in high school, K-12 in general, is what do you want to be? What career you want to pursue? That's a great question. You should be asking that, thinking about it, exploring careers. Department of Labor has some amazing tools for you to do that. But you also want to ask yourself, what do you enjoy learning? Why do you enjoy learning in the classes that you're engaged in, and how have you, what about it like excites you? Because then you'll get some sense, right? Number one, I think I want these careers, but ooh, it really requires a strong foundation in math. Oh, okay. I'm kind of enjoy math. I really don't like math. I really like writing. I love writing. I love English. It really allows you to kind of grapple with what careers you might pursue long term. But more importantly, most of your time in undergrad will be spent in an academic course of study of one kind or another. Even if it's a professional program, you're going to be taking a lot of academic foundational courses. And it's really important for you to have a sense of, hey, would I enjoy that? Why will I enjoy that? It also makes you a more interesting candidate for summer programs you might apply to, scholarship programs you may apply to, because a lot of their questions are why. What are you interested in? Why are you interested in any particular academic subject or even a career? And you can be able to mold and gel that in a way that properly captures what your story is and what fits off for you. And so as colleges are evaluating you, particularly most selective colleges, I have their potential based on evidence, and I meant to update that to say holistic review. Colleges are doing a holistic review. They are not just looking at your grades or your high school transcript and your SAT score. And many right now are not looking at your SAT or ACT scores at all, right? Or standardized exams. They're really trying to get a sense of who you're going to be academically at their school. Are you prepared to contribute to the classroom, to be successful? How you're going to contribute to the life of the college or university, and what your metacognitive variables are. I said that earlier. And so how you persevere, how you overcome challenges, how you're persistent, right? How you set goals and navigate systems. Those are things you're doing right now as you choose activities, as you're a leader in a program. Those are all things that you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about, well, let me talk first about this first part that colleges are really taking a look at, which is your high school transcript. And I want y'all to think about how many of you have actually reviewed your high school transcript, and hopefully you all will. Take a look at your transcript every year. That's important. Colleges are not just looking at, what your GPA is, right? The high school transcript has your grades. It has what courses you've taken, how you've achieved in those courses or not, what challenges you may have had academically in that regard. And you want to see how that's being communicated to colleges. So make sure that you review that high school transcript. Also, the school.
Mr. Hudson.
Yeah.
Just had a quick question on that while you're on that piece, when because we know that COVID has impacted a lot of our students. When they're looking at that holistic review, how do they respond to that if they have struggled? That's a question that has come up.
Yeah, that's a great question. How to, and you talking about academically struggled, right?
Yes.
Is, the part of the reason why I start with where I'm from and, my own path is to let you know, I was a former admission officer, by the way. The people reading your files are people. They've struggled right now through COVID, through the challenges of working at home. And part of it is you need to tell your story. And colleges and universities only know what you tell them. And so you need to capture right now. It's not making an excuse. It's sharing what your story is. And the reason why it's not an excuse, because you may have struggled, but you've overcome that struggle. You've persevered. You've gotten to the other side of it. You figured out what resources. Maybe you needed a Wi-Fi spot. Maybe you needed additional tutoring that you needed to do through your school was trying to figure out how to do it. Or maybe you need to learn. Maybe you needed to have another way that the course was being taught to you because there was too much time of individual reading and not some. Get in touch with your whys of your struggle and share that with the school. But it's through, actually, that's a great point. It's through your essays and personal statements that you share your stories. It allows the college or university to understand who the applicant is, what's important to you beyond and including your grades and activities. And it works with other parts of the application, but it's the only time, right? In the holistic review, colleges and universities see a lot of quantitative measures, and they make qualitative judgments based on some of those things, make judgments based on some of that, subjective judgments, but they also want to read your story. Your story actually matters. A lot of times, students think, oh, it doesn't really matter. There's some schools that don't require a personal statement. For most competitive schools, schools that are selective, they're trying to get a sense of who you are and who you will be in their school community. So you want to really know your story well, share it well. I always like to tell students that if you're in a situation and maybe your counselor had a pile of essays, of personal statements, and somehow yours ended up, she tripped over something and it fell everywhere. Your names weren't on it, and no personal references necessarily were made in the essays. Could a friend pick up that personal statement and know it was you, right? Because someone who really know you know that personal statement represented you. So as you guys are navigating COVID, I do want to put this other part out there. Everyone knows that there are challenges that exist. I do want you to be honest with yourself if you've pursued opportunities to challenge yourself, even despite COVID, right? That we haven't sometimes used COVID as a reason not to do things. And so making sure that there's still activities at your school, there are still things you can do in your community virtually, that you've sought out those opportunities to be engaged in the world, even through COVID, even if it might be virtual. The other thing I mentioned there was the profile, the school profile, and it's important for you to become familiar with your school's profile. It tells the college or university what the context is of the school that you attend. I know students are from all types of different learning environments here in high schools here with different offerings. Some of your schools may provide offer international baccalaureate. Some may provide advanced placement. Some may provide dual enrollment, and some may provide all of the above. Some may provide none of the above. That's fine. That's your story. But the profile allows us to understand that. And so you want to see your profile so you understand how colleges and universities are reading you in context. I usually don't talk about subject test APIB because it's going to vary a lot. In general, if you have an opportunity to take it and you want to take advantage of that opportunity to give you a range of possibility, since some scholarship programs still require it at some colleges, you should sit, prepare yourself, try to do as well as you can on whatever test you may take. But just know what the colleges require versus how important it is. And let me just, a lot of time, students right now, families, there's a lot of things written on blogs that test optional. They say test optional, but they don't really mean it. They really want you to see your scores. If they say test optional, no, they're not gonna really consider you. If a school says test optional, it's test optional. So test optional or test blind or whatever it may be, means what it means. And so if you decide not to submit standardized exams and they've provided that opportunity, you should do that. If you decide to, that's your choice. If it's test blind, that's what that program is. Don't limit yourself or think that just because they might offer an opportunity that you have to do it, you don't. Recommendations are important as well. And so, and this goes back to the type of relationships you're building with your teachers. So, you want to make sure you're asking teachers who know you well, but more importantly, what do you need to do while you're in high school, right? You need to make sure teachers know you well, that you have conversations with them, that you've built relationships. It may not be all of them, but with the ones you have, that you've built relationships, that you want to choose teachers who are from core subject areas. And that's outlined there: natural sciences, social sciences, math, English, and foreign languages. And you want to ask a teacher, usually who's taught you in your junior or senior year. They might have taught you in your freshman and sophomore year as well. But think about who you are in the classroom. Do you raise the level of conversation? Do you bring information and knowledge from other subject areas into the classroom? Seek opportunities to do that, right? Try to be an engaged learner. That allows a teacher to talk more about the grades you received in the class, because we can see that. But to really be able to write meaningful recommendations. And you want to ask a teacher, do you have time to write me a positive recommendation? Some of you out there may be amazing students. But you may not be someone who has the best relationship with your classmates or your teacher in particular classes. That may not be the teacher. If a teacher hesitates, that's fine. That means you have an opportunity to ask a teacher who may know you better or feel more comfortable with that. So you want to be aware of that. Your college counselor, school counselor is also going to write a recommendation. Some of you may have a school or college counselor who knows you well and can share a lot of information about you. Others may have a school counselor who doesn't know you well. In general, with your school counselors and your college counselors, as well as your teachers, take time to share with them what your dreams and aspirations are. Ask them for recommendations for programs and activities that allow you to further develop and explore some of your interests, right? Because more than likely, that allowed them an opportunity to get to know you, to get to know what you care about. And possibly they'll be able to provide you with an opportunity, an enrichment opportunity that fits some of your interests. And so I encourage you to think about that. And a teacher who also knows you outside the classroom. In the earlier slide, I talked about who you are outside of how you contribute to your community is important. So colleges and universities, as they're doing holistic review, are looking at, it says extracurricular activities here. I want to broaden that. A lot of times when we think about extracurricular activities, we're thinking about programs that are in school, that you're maybe a school leader of some kind. I want y'all all to think about people who have titles at school, but they really don't do anything in that role. Some of your classmates. Are you that student? Are you a student who's contributed something, who's done something, that there's been some outcomes that you contributed to your community through the activity that you were involved in? And how did you do that? Because colleges and universities are going to want to know that, because that's what you'll be doing in college. So there's no particular way. A lot of times students are like, oh, I heard I really have to do volunteer service. Well, if you care about volunteer service, I guess that matters. But if you don't care about it, that's the way it's going to read, that you're doing it because that's something you're supposed to do as a part of your college application. So do things that really matter to you, right? So if you're going to volunteer and you really enjoy math, then maybe it's an opportunity for you to tutor a student in math, right? Or you really enjoy, so choose something that fits you, that matches you, or that you might believe will allow you to explore. We're looking at impact rather than the number, or the, we're looking at what is the commitment, not we, but colleges, universities are looking at what your commitment is. But also some of you may have a responsibility at home. You may take care of a younger family member or an older family member. You may have to You have responsibilities at home to make sure that things are working fluidly, that people have food to eat, whatever it may be, as a part of your responsibilities, because you have a parent who works a lot. Or you may have to help with a family business or farm. There's lots of ways that you contribute at home that's important. Or you're involved in civic activities or religious activity as a leader. Those are all things that are important as well. So that's part of the holistic review, who you are as a person. Any questions?
Yes, we did have a question when we were talking about essays. And they wanted to know how many, and I know that varies, but how many should they be prepared to write? And, can they start on any of that early?
That's a great question. I encourage students, I encourage students to be able to be ready, prepared to write 3 to 5 essays. Let me say that seems like a lot. Most of the responses for colleges and universities are going to be maybe one personal statement and then an additional question or 3 that are small answers. I read for the Gates Scholarship, which is 5 questions, I believe 5 to 8 questions that you have to respond to, and there are other major scholarships like that. The reason why you should be prepared, you should have prepared that many, is because this is what inevitably is going to happen. It's going to be your senior year. You have an activity for the weekend that you're going to be doing. Maybe you play a sport or choral or something else. You have a major project due for school. And your counselor or teacher is going to tell you there's a scholarship available that they just found out about, and the due date is Monday. You have the ability, if you've prepared over the summer, you have the ability to go back to your essays and start to just craft them and move them around so you can have it ready to apply for that last minute opportunity that's available to you. But it also allows you to just work through and not be stressed as you're working on these personal statements when the time comes to apply, but actually have documents and stories ready to go that you can adapt. And so the best thing for you to do, as I said earlier, is to look at the Common App, look at the other applications for a college that you think you might want to apply to, look at what their directions are, and that'll give you some sense of what the expectations might be in terms of number of applications. But the questions will be different, and you may be telling different stories. So you want to write different types of essays ahead of time so you're prepared.
And isn't it also true, like in some instances, you can even, or they will allow you to submit a paper perhaps that you've had to submit for one of your classes as a writing sample in some instances. So you could choose, your best, as long as it matches the topic, you could choose one of your better papers and submit that as a part of your application package as well.
Yeah, some schools may allow that. Other schools, like Princeton, for example, what we do, we require a writing sample in addition to the essays that we have you submit. And I'm also on the board of a summer enrichment program, and we actually ask for a writing sample as a part of that in addition to the essays. The point of that being the projects and work that you're doing in college, in high school right now matter. And so take your time and make sure that you have some piece of writing that your teachers have provided feedback to you on, that you're prepared to be able to submit to colleges and universities that might require it.
Okay. Another question that we got in the chat deals with, we're talking about extracurricular activities here, but sometimes those the scholarships or those aid packages may only cover 1 to 2 years. And so, how can they continue to stay engaged when they're on campus? What should they do when they get, to that campus to make sure that they're still staying abreast of like those internships, those other opportunities that may, come available?
Yeah, thank you for that question. There are, so I'm going to answer them. So the core question I get, I'm actually going to answer the first part of that, which is about how students are aided. And that point that sometimes students receive scholarships or information that they're only aided for a year or 2 years and not for 4 years. And that speaks to the importance of students really giving themselves options and understanding what the financial aid package is. For many of these most selective schools, the financial aid package remains the same in terms of what percentage of the aid that they're covering through the 4 years. Princeton, for example, that aid is through the 4 years, but you have to apply for aid every year because some of you, your family played the lottery and they might win something. We want some of that money if that happens. But for the most part, that's not generally what happens. For other schools, they do only give you that money for a year or 2 years. And to be frank with you, students have to come home, and I'm sure Ms. McGuire has seen this, because they can't access that money. And so part of what you want to do as but that school may have been a great fit for you and may work well for you. But part of what you want to do is to get to know, that's why you want to look at what type of college advising and internships are available. What access do you have to Career Development Center or the Career Services Office? You want to make sure that you go and meet with those individuals, that you find out about internship opportunities. There are some amazing programs that provide you internships. It always amazes me that students choose a major, maybe they do an activity, but they don't always get that correlation with actually having work experience that's aligned with what they think they may be interested in. And you can also work with professors to be research assistants or in a lab. Those are opportunities that are afforded you that you want to take advantage of. You can also apply to scholarships while you're in college. And so you look at programs like the United Negro College Fund or Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Fund or the Native, just forgot the name of it. There are some amazing scholarship programs. I think I have it here that I'll show you in a second that you want to make sure you apply to. And actually, while I have this here, I think I will pull up some of those scholarships. And so you can see what some of those scholarships are that you can continue to apply to while you're in college. And these are scholarships that actually cover last dollar amounts over 4 years of college as well. You also, again, want to get to know professors. That's so important because professors might be able to tell you about programs that are a fit or match for you. But it starts with you making the right decisions when you're applying to college in the list that you put together and the final decision you make, giving yourself options. So some of you may be really, if any seniors are here, I'm not sure, or juniors, when you next year, you really love one school, maybe a good friend goes there, you're really excited. Yes, I know that's the school for me. I'm going there no matter what. I don't need to be applying to these other schools. I know where I'm going. College and universities are business, so it's great that you love it. But if the aid is not right, you will be home in a year or two, or you will be taking out an extreme amount of debt. Give yourself time. There might, you have until May 1st to make a decision about where you will attend. Give yourself that time to consider your options, unless you've decided through advice of your counselor, knowing that the aid package is fit, to apply to a school early decision, or maybe you're a recruited athlete and you know how those packages will be over time. And you've chosen a school that fits you based on those opportunities.
All right, and I think the resources that you have here, because we have had students and parents asking about what scholarship resources are out there. Again, we cannot stress enough, if you're at this point in your senior year, of course, we have some local opportunities that are posted on our page, as well as the Savannah Chatham County Public Schools, that scholarship page. There's some local opportunities. But for those of you, and I see there is a couple of juniors or there are a couple of juniors, I'm sorry, that are in our session today, as well as, you know, we may have some students in lower grades. You have to start building your resume, both your transcript as well as that that extracurricular, that community involvement piece. You have to start building that today. You cannot wait until your senior year to really start thinking about those things, you know, so that you can make sure that you are eligible and that you are a good candidate for these scholarships and resources. So we're coming up on the end of some of our time here. And Mr. Hudson, just some great information that you have shared about this process and what parents can expect. But what parting or closing comments would you have? Because as you stated, a lot of this goes across multiple institutions. When they say that they're test optional, that's what they really mean. But you've also got to have a strong package, meaning those extracurricular, that academic transcript, telling your story, because we know that this has been difficult. But what points, and I see you've put them here on the screen, what points would you like to leave our audience with today?
Yeah, I mean, and I like to end with this because I think it's just a guide and path. I can say something poetic and all that, but I'm gonna actually leave with this because it was based on research from a Princeton professor, Richard Light at Harvard University. It was published in 2001, but the information still rings true to your points, Mr. McGuire, about just the importance of you have to do the work to have the opportunities. And sometimes you have to challenge yourself outside of your comfort zone. And I can't stress how important that is. And so, you know, these were things that he found, that Richard Light found, were important for students to be successful in college. And I want to stress to you that these are things that, and points of advice that are important for you as you prepare for college, right? Learning outside of the classroom and using your summers. You know, you can learn outside the classroom working a job, doing an internship, doing an academic enrichment program. They all teach you something, but do something outside the classroom aligned, hopefully, to what things you want to learn or needs you may have. That believe in yourself is so important. Surround yourself with people who challenge you when you don't write that paper, or when you don't show up in class, or when you are not being as great as you can be. Believe in your greatness. I can't stress that enough. You know, I often tell students, you're enough. A lot of times students think that, oh, I have to be like so-and-so and that person over there. Be your greatness, right? That's so important. It's going to allow you, it's a tool for life. Building relationships with faculty and administrators. You know, I mean, it may not be every faculty, it may not be every administrators, but they care about you. They do that work because they see themselves in you. Asking for their assistance and guidance is something that can be a really valuable long-term resource and tool for you. And if there are some that you don't build that relationship with, that's fine. There'll be others. Be vigilant in that. Getting out of your comfort zone. Sometimes when people are from a traditionally underrepresented background, they might be Black or Latino or some of the backgrounds, like, oh, I am diversity. No, value diversity beyond your own background, right? Learn another language, another culture, right? For me, when I come to the South, I have to learn to operate in a different way than I might up north, or when I went to China or South Africa, learning different norms. And I learned that through reading, through my engagement with others, through work, etc. And for everyone, even if you hate writing, develop your writing skills. It's key. It's important. You will always need it, even if you think you're just going to be in a lab or doing math or writing or working with your hands. You will need to write an evaluation, a plan, something. Learn to write and continue to develop your writing skills, even if it's hard.
Those are all some great points. And when you said you are enough, I know that there's so much out there. And with this process, you can think, well, because of where I come from, or what I have or haven't done, sometimes that you can't do all of these things. But the point of this whole workshop is to tell you, yes, you can. You can, but you've got to put in that work. You've got to put in that research to make those things happen. So we are so grateful. I'm seeing, one person who's participated here, Ms. Horton, said, yes, you need someone around you to make sure that they are a good influence. They're pushing you and propelling you into those things that will help benefit you. And all of the information we've shared here today, parents, students, these are free resources. These institutions are willing and able and ready to engage you, but you've got to start that process early. And so that's the whole point of MegaGenesis. We want you to get that early start, have the information needed so that you can go to high school, but excel in college, excel in your chosen career, excel and have all of the options available to you. So Mr. Hudson, I want to say thank you. You have been a dynamic partner for us with the school system, and now even with MegaGenesis, and we hope, maybe next year we can have you here in person so that we can treat you to some of that Southern hospitality. But I am so grateful for you being here today.
Thank you. It's an honor. And I look forward to some of that Southern hospitality this time next year.
All right. Thank you so much. Students and parents, please stay with us today. We have several other institutions and presenters that will be with us throughout the day. And so we want to make sure you're engaging with those. We're also, we have several giveaways that are going on. And we're going to be posting some additional winners in just a few moments. So again, please stay with us throughout the day and make sure you're engaged with us. Thank you so much.